You ever watch someone dig their own grave with a smile on their face? That was Karen, our HOA president, from the moment she walked into the courtroom, smug as ever, waving a stack of documents she claimed were official. What she didn't know: a storm was coming. One that would have the judge's gavel slamming so hard the bailiff had to step in. And when the truth came out, when those papers were exposed as fake right there in court, you could almost hear her world collapse. But let me rewind, because the road to that courtroom was paved with manipulation, lies, and one neighbor who decided enough was enough. The nightmare started with a letter taped to our door. A bright orange notice with bold letters screaming, "Violation, non-compliant structure." My wife, Ellie, held it up with trembling fingers. "Again," she whispered. "We just built a small pergola in our backyard, simple wood slats, maybe 10 feet long. Nothing outrageous. We even submitted the design to the HOA portal, but never heard back." Karen struck again. Karen Wallace, president of the Eastern Grove HOA, had made it her life's mission to control every blade of grass in our neighborhood. She was retired, bitter, and somehow always watching. People joked that she had drones. Others thought she had nothing better to do than monitor everyone's property like a hawk on caffeine. But this time, she crossed a line. We tried to appeal the violation through the proper HOA channels, but Karen blocked every attempt. She refused to schedule our hearing. Then, she started issuing fines. First $50, then $150. By the third week, it was over $600. When I asked her politely at the next board meeting what happened to our original design submission, she just smiled. "We never received it. Maybe your email got lost." Except I had the submission receipt. Time-stamped. PDF copy. Still, she waved it off like lint on her sleeve. I wasn't the only one. Nora and Tim, our neighbors, got fined for having too many garden gnomes. Literally, garden gnomes. One of the newer residents got a warning for hanging a pride flag. It became clear, this wasn't about rules. It was about Karen. And Karen was getting bold. One night, as I was scrolling through our community Facebook group, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A post from James Hall, who lived 2 streets over. It said, "Karen forged my HOA violation notice. Just confirmed with county records. The date she listed doesn't match when the permit was actually filed." Dozens of replies followed. More accusations. Fake signatures. Altered dates. Someone even claimed Karen had sent them a court warning letter, threatening legal action if they didn't pay. A court warning? From the HOA president? That was the tipping point. James and I met the next day. He was a former paralegal, quiet, careful, but determined. He had already compiled a folder of evidence, screenshots, emails, paper letters. Together, we began investigating. The more we dug, the more horrifying it became. Karen had been creating mock court letters using templates she downloaded from online legal sites. She altered them in Photoshop, slapped on what looked like a county seal, and printed them on thick paper to make them feel official. In one case, she forged the signature of a local magistrate. We called the courthouse. They had never issued the documents. They weren't even aware Karen was threatening legal action on behalf of the HOA. That's when we knew this wasn't petty. This was criminal. James filed a formal complaint with the county. I followed suit. So did Tim, Nora, and 4 other families. And that's when everything exploded. A summons was issued. Karen was ordered to appear in civil court to explain the fines and the forged letters. The day of the hearing, the room buzzed with neighbors. More than 24 residents showed up. Karen walked in like royalty, chin high, a binder under her arm. She smiled like she was about to teach us a lesson. But the judge. She wasn't in the mood. Judge Florence Mills, tough, no nonsense, and known for despising fraud, asked Karen to explain the documents. Karen handed over her forged court letters. She even called them official notifications from county records. The judge raised an eyebrow. She studied the seal, flipped through the pages, and then leaned forward. "Ms. Wallace, where did you get these?" Karen blinked. "They're from the county. I printed them myself, as the HOA has the right to." The judge cut her off. Printed them yourself? Karen hesitated. Do you have authorization to send legal notices on behalf of this court? Karen's lips parted. I represent the HOA. That's not what I asked. Karen's binder trembled in her hands. The room had gone dead silent. Judge Mills picked up her phone and dialed someone in chambers. Within minutes, a court clerk entered. She examined the letters, then whispered something to the judge. Judge Mills turned back to Karen with ice in her voice. These documents are falsified, forged. And you, Ms. Wallace, are not only misrepresenting this court, you've impersonated a public official. Karen stammered. No, I just... But it was too late. Bailiff, the judge said, pointing to Karen. Take her into custody for document forgery and impersonation of a court officer. Gasps echoed around the room. Karen's face drained of color. Her binder slipped from her hands and crashed to the floor. No. You can't. This is a misunderstanding. I was just trying to... Save it for your attorney, the bailiff growled. As Karen was led out in cuffs, the judge turned to us. For the record, any HOA attempting to enforce rules with false legal documents will face consequences. We walked out in stunned silence. Somehow, the dragon of Easton Grove had fallen. But it wasn't over. Because what we discovered next was even darker. You'd think the story ended when the handcuffs clicked shut. But what no one expected was how deep the rot went. Karen's arrest wasn't the climax. It was just the crack in the dam. And when it burst, it flooded everything we thought we knew about our neighborhood, our HOA, and the people who had quietly enabled her madness from the shadows. 3 days after her court meltdown, word spread fast. Karen had been officially charged with 3 felony counts: forgery, impersonation of a public official, and falsifying legal records. The news broke on the county site, and within hours, a local reporter from Channel 6 showed up, standing in front of her house with the headline, Easton Grove HOA President Arrested for Forged Court Documents. But here's where things got strange. The HOA board released a statement, cold, corporate, and strangely distant. They said, Ms. Wallace's actions do not reflect the values or practices of the Easton Grove HOA board. We are cooperating with authorities and conducting an internal review. Internal review? The same board that sat through every one of her rants, approved her fines, and ignored all of our complaints suddenly wanted to pretend they were innocent bystanders? That didn't sit right with any of us. So James and I kept digging. And what we found next sent chills through us. Hidden in the HOA's expense reports, yes, those boring little PDFs no one ever reads, were line items marked administrative filing fees. Some of these were over $900. Others, as high as $1,500. The thing is, none of us had seen any legal filings actually happen. So what was she paying for? We tracked the payments. One name kept popping up next to the disbursements: Gerald P. Lawson. He wasn't a lawyer. He wasn't even a licensed paralegal. Turns out, Gerald was a freelance document preparer who worked from his garage. The kind of guy you hire off Craigslist to help you create legal-looking paperwork, fast and cheap. We called him, or rather, James did, pretending to be a client. Within 5 minutes, Gerald was bragging about helping a local HOA president format court letters to scare violators. He laughed, said it was genius how she handled the neighborhood like a courtroom. We recorded every word. That's when we knew we had the smoking gun. Gerald had been paid with HOA dues to create forged legal documents, and Karen had presented those to real residents as if they were threats from the court. It wasn't just unethical. It was criminal racketeering. We sent the audio to the county investigator already handling Karen's case. She was stunned. Days later, Gerald was subpoenaed. But the real twist. When Gerald was questioned, he didn't go down alone. He named vice president of the HOA, a man named Howard Gleason, as the one who approved all payments and even suggested using legal language to intimidate people. Howard, who had sat at every meeting quietly sipping his tea, pretending to be neutral, was in it up to his eyeballs. A second round of charges was filed. This time against Gerald and Howard. Easton Grove exploded with outrage. An emergency HOA meeting was called. It was supposed to be a quiet, private, board-only session, but over 60 residents showed up. The new acting president tried to shush us, saying the matter was sensitive, but people weren't having it. Nora stood up. We were threatened. We were lied to. Our money was used for crimes. And you want quiet. That meeting turned into a riot, figuratively. We voted right there to remove the entire board. Bylaws or not. Everyone wanted change. The vote was unanimous. The board was dissolved. A legal transition committee was appointed. James became head of it. And finally, after months of gaslighting, fines, and intimidation, we had control back. But even with Karen gone, the scars ran deep. One neighbor, Leslie, admitted she nearly sold her house out of stress. Another had pulled their child from school because of anxiety triggered by constant HOA letters. We were more than angry, we were grieving. Grieving for the peace we'd lost. The irony. Karen's house, once the fortress of fear, sat abandoned now, weeds curling around the porch, windows shuttered. It had become a symbol, not just of corruption, but of what happens when power is unchecked. Then came one final letter. This time, from the district attorney's office. Karen had accepted a plea deal. 1 year of house arrest. 5 years probation. Community service, and full restitution to the HOA. And one condition, she could never serve on any homeowners association again. Some said it wasn't enough. Others said justice was done. But the real victory was watching our neighborhood breathe again. Backyards that had once been too cluttered were now filled with laughter and cookouts. Flags waved freely. Gnomes returned, more of them, even. And one night, as I stood in my yard, sipping a cold drink under the very pergola Karen once tried to tear down, I saw something that felt like poetry. A kid from the next street over walked by, paused, and stuck a sign in the grass. It read, "Welcome to Free Easton Grove. HOA ruled by sanity." I laughed. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like home.